The cantina fell silent as Vextar limped through the entrance. His scarred carapace caught the dim light, each mark telling a story of battles fought across the galaxy. The Krillian veteran's forearms moved stiffly as he made his way to the bar, his compound eyes scanning the mixed crowd of aliens nursing their drinks. The bartender, a blue-skinned Zephyrian, nodded respectfully. Everyone knew Vextar's reputation. He had fought in more campaigns than most beings had lived years. His service record was legendary among military circles, but, lately, something had changed. The old warrior who once spoke proudly of his victories now carried a haunted look. "The usual?" the bartender asked, already reaching for a bottle of Krillian firewine. Vextar nodded, his mandibles clicking softly. As the drink was poured, he noticed the young aliens at the nearby table. They wore the fresh uniforms of new recruits, their excitement barely contained as they discussed their upcoming deployment. "I heard we're finally going to push into the outer rim," one of them whispered, a young Altarian with bright purple skin. "Command says it's time to show these primitive species who really rules the galaxy." His companion, a reptilian saurid, hissed in agreement. "About time. These backwards worlds have been independent too long. The Galactic Coalition needs to expand." Vextar's grip tightened on his glass. He had heard this conversation countless times over the past few cycles. Young soldiers eager for glory, believing in the Coalition's propaganda about bringing civilization to lesser species. They had no idea what they were walking into. "You boys look ready for war," Vextar said, his voice carrying across the small space. The recruits turned, their eyes widening as they recognized the famous veteran. "General Vextar," the Altarian exclaimed, jumping to his feet. "It's an honor, sir. We've studied your campaigns at the Academy." Vextar gestured for them to sit. "Just Vextar now. I retired from active duty." He took a long drink, feeling the firewine burn down his throat. "So, you're heading to the Outer Rim?" "Yes, sir," the Saurid replied eagerly. "Sector 847. Intelligence says there's a primitive species there that's been causing trouble for our mining operations." "Nothing we can't handle." The old warrior's compound eyes fixed on them with an intensity that made both recruits shift uncomfortably. "Primitive species," he repeated slowly. "What do you know about them?" The Altarian consulted his datapad. "According to the briefings, they're called humans. Recently discovered space travel, very basic technology. They've been interfering with our legitimate resource extraction on several worlds in their local cluster." Vextar's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation that made nearby patrons take notice. "Humans," he whispered, the word carrying weight that neither recruit understood. "You know of them, sir?" the Saurid asked. For a long moment, Vextar stared into his drink. When he looked up, his expression had changed completely. Gone was the casual demeanor, replaced by something that looked almost like fear. "Know of them?" Vextar laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "Boy, I've fought them. Spent 3 years in what Command likes to call police actions in human space. 3 years that felt like a lifetime." The recruits leaned forward, suddenly, very interested. Stories from veterans were always valuable, especially from someone of Vextar's caliber. "The first time we encountered them was on a world called Kepler 442b, Vextar began, his voice taking on the distant quality of someone reliving painful memories. "Command called it a simple pacification mission. The humans had established a colony there, mining rare earth elements that the Coalition needed for our expansion projects." He paused to take another drink, his forehands trembling slightly. "We were told they were savages. Barely civilized primates who had somehow stumbled into space technology they didn't understand. The plan was simple: land, demonstrate our superior firepower, accept their surrender, and integrate their resources into the Coalition." "Sounds straightforward," the Altarian commented. "That's what we thought," Vextar continued. "I was commanding the 47th Assault Division then. 10,000 of the Coalition's finest warriors, equipped with the best weapons and armor our technology could provide. We had orbital support, atmospheric fighters, heavy armor divisions. We outnumbered the human defenders 20-1. The cantina had grown quiet around them. Other patrons, recognizing the tone of Vextar's voice, had stopped their own conversations to listen. "The landing was unopposed," Vextar said. "We deployed in standard formation, expecting to find frightened civilians and maybe a few security forces with projectile weapons. Instead, we found empty settlements. The humans had evacuated their cities. Cowards, the Saurid muttered. Vexstar's eyes fixed on him with such intensity that the young soldier actually flinched. Cowards? No, boy. Strategic. That was our first lesson about humans. They don't fight the way we expect them to fight. He stood and began pacing, his movements still showing the effects of old injuries. For 2 days, we searched empty cities. Our sensors showed human life signs in the surrounding forests and mountains, but they wouldn't engage us in open battle. Command was getting impatient. They wanted a quick victory to report to the Coalition Council. So what happened? The Altarian asked. On the third night, they came for us, Vexstar said quietly. Not like an army. Like ghosts. Our sentries started disappearing. Equipment would malfunction or explode. Supply convoys would be attacked and vanish into the wilderness before our response teams could arrive. The veteran returned to his seat, his expression growing darker. We called in orbital strikes on their suspected positions. Turned entire forest sections into glass. But they kept coming. Always adapting, always learning. But surely your superior technology gave you the advantage, the Saurid protested. Vexstar laughed bitterly. Superior technology. That's what killed half my division. You see, humans have this disturbing talent. They can look at any piece of technology and figure out not just how it works, but how to make it work better. Or how to turn it against you. He pulled up his sleeve, revealing a prosthetic arm that had been skillfully crafted but was clearly not of Coalition manufacture. They captured one of our energy weapons. Within hours, they had reverse-engineered it and started producing their own versions. But they didn't stop there. They improved it. Made it more efficient, more portable, and somehow more devastating. The recruits exchanged uncertain glances. This wasn't the kind of story they had expected from a decorated veteran. The humans had something else, Vexstar continued. Something that our military academies don't teach you how to fight against. They had what they call adaptive creativity under pressure. Every time we developed a new tactic, they would counter it within days. Every weakness they found in our equipment, they exploited ruthlessly. He gestured to his scarred carapace. See these marks? Each one represents a lesson about human warfare. This one here, he pointed to a particularly nasty scar running along his side, that's from when they figured out how to turn our own shielding technology into a weapon. How? The Altarian asked, his earlier enthusiasm noticeably dimmed. They captured one of our shield generators and studied it. Discovered that if they reversed the polarity and overcharged the power source, it would create an electromagnetic pulse that could disable every piece of Coalition technology within a kilometer radius. Then, they built dozens of them and used them to shut down our entire forward base. Vexstar took another drink, his compound eyes distant. But the worst part wasn't their technology or their tactics. It was their mindset. Humans don't just fight to win. They fight to survive. And when a species that evolved from predators decides it needs to survive, they become something terrifying. Surely the Coalition's numerical advantage counted for something, the Saurid said, though his voice lacked conviction. Numbers, Vexstar mused. Yes, we had numbers. But humans don't see numbers the way we do. Where we see 10,000 Coalition soldiers, they see 10,000 individual targets with individual weaknesses. They studied us. Learned our patrol patterns, our communication frequencies, our supply schedules. They turned our own organization against us. The veteran stood again, moving to the window to look out at the busy spaceport beyond. I remember one night when a single human infiltrator managed to reprogram our entire automated defense system. She convinced our own guns that we were the enemy. Lost 200 soldiers before we could regain control. One human did that, the Altarian whispered. One human, Vexstar confirmed. A female named Sarah Chen. She was a civilian engineer before the war. No military training. But she understood our technology better than the engineers who built it. That's when I realized we weren't fighting primitive savages. We were fighting a species that could adapt and evolve faster than we could comprehend. The cantina had fallen completely silent now. Even the bartender had stopped cleaning glasses to listen to the veteran's account. The siege lasted 8 months, Vextar continued. 8 months of constant harassment, sabotage, and psychological warfare. The humans never engaged us in direct battle. They didn't need to. They simply made it impossible for us to accomplish our mission. What about reinforcements? The Sorid asked. 3 separate reinforcement fleets were sent, Vextar replied. The humans had by then figured out how to detect our ships before they entered the system. They would hit them with coordinated strikes using our own captured weapons. Ships that had never been defeated in conventional warfare were being destroyed by modified human shuttlecraft. The recruits looked at each other with growing alarm. This wasn't the glorious campaign they had been promised. The worst part was watching my soldiers lose faith, Vextar said, his voice barely above a whisper. These were warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds, who believed in coalition superiority. But the humans broke something inside us. Not through superior firepower or numbers, but through pure, relentless competence. He turned back to face the young soldiers. Every day, the humans got better. Every day, we got weaker. Not physically, but mentally. They were inside our heads, predicting our moves, countering our strategies before we could implement them. How did it end? The Eltarian asked, though he seemed afraid of the answer. Vextar's mandibles clicked slowly. Command finally ordered a withdrawal. Called it a strategic redeployment. But we all knew the truth. We had been beaten. Completely, thoroughly beaten by a species we had dismissed as primitive. The veteran returned to his seat, suddenly, looking much older than his years. That was just the first encounter. There were others. Each one worse than the last. Because the humans, you see, they don't just learn from their own experiences. They share everything. Every tactic we used, every weakness they discovered, every innovation they developed, it all gets transmitted to every other human settlement instantly. That's impossible, the Sorid protested. No species can coordinate on that scale. Humans can, Vextar said simply. They have something called the Internet. It's like a neural network that connects every human brain to every other human brain. Information travels at the speed of light across their entire civilization. When one human learns something, they all learn it. The implications of this statement hung heavy in the air. Both recruits were beginning to understand why their veteran companion looked so haunted. So when you boys go to Sector 847, Vextar said, his voice carrying a weight that made both young soldiers shiver, remember this, you're not fighting a primitive species. You're fighting the most adaptable, creative, and ruthlessly efficient predators the galaxy has ever produced. And they've had 3 years to prepare for your arrival. The cantina remained silent as Vextar finished his drink and stood to leave. At the door, he paused and looked back at the recruits. Good luck, he said. You're going to need it. As the door closed behind the veteran, the 2 recruits sat in stunned silence, their earlier enthusiasm completely evaporated. Around them, the cantina's patrons began to whisper among themselves, spreading the word of what they had heard. The Eltarian looked at his companion with growing dread. Maybe we should request a transfer. The Sorid nodded slowly, but they both knew it was too late. Their orders were already sealed, their transport already fueled. In 3 days, they would be on their way to Sector 847, to face an enemy that had already demonstrated its ability to defeat the Coalition's finest. Neither of them slept well that night. 3 days after the encounter in the cantina, Vextar received an unexpected visitor at his modest dwelling on the outskirts of the spaceport. Admiral Theclon, a high-ranking Zerathian military commander, stood at his door with an expression that mixed respect with barely concealed desperation. General Vextar, the Admiral began, using the old rank despite Vextar's retirement. I need to speak with you urgently. Vextar's compound eyes studied the visitor carefully. Admiral Theclon was known throughout the Coalition military as a brilliant strategist and uncompromising leader. To see him here, away from his flagship and obviously uncomfortable, suggested something significant was happening. I'm retired, Admiral, Vextar replied, but stepped aside to let him enter. Whatever crisis you're facing, I'm sure Coalition Command can handle it. Theclon's crystalline features flickered with an emotion Vextar had rarely seen in the stoic Zerathian, fear. That's just it, General. Command can't handle it. That's why I'm here. The interior of Vextar's dwelling was sparse but functional, decorated with a few mementos from his military career and several bottles of firewine. Theklan examined the space with the eye of a fellow soldier before settling into the offered chair. "I heard about your conversation with those recruits," the admiral said without preamble. "Word travels fast in military circles. Especially when it concerns humans." Vexstar poured 2 glasses of firewine, noting how Theklan's hands shook slightly as he accepted one. "And the operation in Sector 847 has been accelerated," Theklan said. "What was supposed to be a routine pacification mission has become a full-scale military campaign. High Command wants results, and they want them quickly. Why the rush?" Vexstar asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Theklan took a long drink before responding. "Because human space is expanding. Faster than our intelligence predicted. They've established colonies in 12 new systems in the past 6 months alone. Each one is more advanced than the last." The retired general wasn't surprised. During his campaigns against humans, he had seen their remarkable ability to adapt and improve their technology at an exponential rate. "They're learning." "More than learning," Theklan corrected. "They're evolving. Our latest intelligence reports suggest they've developed faster-than-light communication technology. Not just communication, coordination. Their entire species is becoming a single, unified intelligence." Vexstar set down his glass carefully. This was worse than he had feared. "Show me the reports." Theklan activated a holographic display from his personal device. Images of human settlements appeared in the air between them, but these weren't the crude colonies Vexstar remembered from his earlier encounters. These were sophisticated installations with defensive systems that rivaled anything the Coalition possessed. "This is New Geneva," Theklan explained, highlighting one particular settlement. "Established only 4 months ago. Look at the defensive capabilities." Vexstar studied the hologram with growing alarm. The settlement featured energy shields, automated defense turrets, and what appeared to be some kind of adaptive camouflage system that could make entire sections of the colony invisible to standard sensors. "They built this in 4 months?" Vexstar asked. "Less than that, actually. Intelligence suggests the entire installation was constructed in 6 weeks. They seem to have developed some kind of automated construction system using nanotechnology." "Nanotechnology," Vexstar repeated. "The Coalition has been working on that for decades." "The humans perfected it in less than a year," Theklan said grimly. "That's not the worst part. Show me the tactical analysis of their weapons systems." The hologram shifted to display captured footage from a skirmish between Coalition forces and human defenders. Vexstar watched in stunned silence as human fighters used weapons that seemed to anticipate and counter Coalition tactics in real time. "Those weapons are adapting during the battle," Vexstar observed. "Artificial intelligence," Theklan confirmed. "But not like our AI systems. Human artificial intelligence appears to be truly intelligent. Creative. Intuitive. It learns and improves faster than our programmers can write new code." Vexstar leaned back in his chair, his mind racing through the implications. "They've weaponized their entire technological development process." "Exactly. Every encounter with Coalition forces teaches them something new. Every piece of our technology they capture gets reverse-engineered and improved within days. They're turning our own military-industrial complex against us." The admiral stood and began pacing, his crystalline skin flickering with patterns that indicated extreme stress. "But that's not why I'm here, General. I'm here because of what happened to the 23rd Fleet." Vexstar's forearms tensed. The 23rd Fleet was one of the Coalition's most powerful battle groups, commanded by Admiral Korthake and equipped with the latest Dreadnought-class warships. "What happened to them?" "They attempted to blockade a human system called Sol," Theklan said quietly. Intelligence indicated it was the human homeworld. High Command believed that threatening their origin planet would force them to negotiate. "And?" Theklan's expression grew haunted. "The 23rd Fleet disappeared. All contact was lost 18 hours after they entered the system. No distress signals, no battle reports, no debris fields. 300 ships and over 2 million crew members simply gone." The room fell silent except for the distant sounds of spacecraft taking off from the nearby spaceport. Vexstar felt a chill run down his spine despite the warm temperature of his dwelling. How? He asked. That's what we're trying to figure out, Theklan replied. Long-range sensors detected some kind of massive energy discharge in the Sol system, but, by the time our reconnaissance drones arrived, there was no trace of either the fleet or whatever destroyed it. Vexstar stood and moved to his collection of military awards, studying them as if seeing them for the first time. You want me to come out of retirement? High Command is preparing Operation Final Solution, Theklan said. A massive military campaign designed to eliminate the human threat once and for all. Every available ship, every trained soldier, every advanced weapon system the Coalition possesses. You're talking about genocide. We're talking about survival, Theklan countered. The humans are expanding too fast, learning too quickly. If we don't stop them now, in 5 years they'll be knocking on the doors of core Coalition worlds. Vexstar turned to face his visitor. And, you think I can help you defeat them? You're the only Coalition commander who's fought them and lived to tell about it, Theklan said. Your experience is invaluable. You know their tactics, their capabilities, their psychology. I know enough to be terrified of them, Vexstar replied honestly. Admiral, have you ever watched a human child learn? The unexpected question caught Theklan off guard. What? During the occupation of Kepler 442b, I observed human civilians. Including their young. A human child can master complex concepts in days that take other species years to understand. They don't just learn through instruction, they learn through experimentation, failure, and adaptation. They're born innovators. Vexstar returned to his seat, his expression grave. Now imagine an entire civilization of beings like that, all connected through instantaneous communication, all sharing knowledge and discoveries in real time. Every human who figures out how to defeat Coalition technology shares that knowledge with billions of others instantly. That's why we need to act quickly, Theklan insisted. Before they become too advanced to stop. Too late, Vexstar said simply. They're already too advanced to stop through conventional military force. The 23rd Fleet proved that. The Admiral's crystalline features darkened. Then, what do you suggest? Vexstar was quiet for a long time, staring into his glass of firewine. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of hard-earned wisdom. I suggest we learn from them instead of trying to destroy them. Learn from them? Theklan's voice rose in disbelief. They're the enemy. Are they? Vexstar asked. Or are they just a species trying to survive in a galaxy dominated by predatory empires? Think about it, Admiral. Every human world we've attacked was simply a mining colony or agricultural settlement. They weren't conquering other species or enslaving populations. They were just trying to live. Theklan's skin flickered with patterns indicating confusion and anger. They've killed millions of Coalition soldiers. In self-defense, Vexstar pointed out. When we attacked them first. Tell me, Admiral, what would the Coalition do if a more powerful alien force invaded our space and demanded we surrender our resources? The question hung in the air between them. Both soldiers knew the answer. That's different, Theklan said weakly. Is it? Or do we just tell ourselves it's different because we can't accept that we might be the aggressors? Vexstar stood and activated his own holographic display, showing strategic maps of the galaxy. Look at this objectively, Admiral. The Coalition controls 70% of known space. We have subjugated hundreds of species, stripped countless worlds of their resources, and eliminated any civilization that refused to submit to our authority. He highlighted the small cluster of stars that represented human space. Humans control less than 1% of the galaxy. They've never attacked Coalition territory except in response to our invasions. They've never demanded tribute from other species or forced anyone to adopt their political system. But their expansion rate is a natural response to external pressure, Vexstar interrupted. They're spreading out because they know the Coalition will eventually come for all of them. They're trying to become too dispersed for us to eliminate them completely. Theklan stared at the star map, his crystalline features reflecting the holographic light. You're suggesting we've misunderstood the entire conflict. I'm suggesting we've misunderstood the entire species, Vexstar corrected. Humans aren't trying to build an empire. They're trying to ensure their survival. And they're very good at it. The Admiral drained his glass of firewine in one gulp. Even if you're right, it doesn't matter. High Command has made the decision. Operation Final Solution launches in 6 months. Every coalition species is contributing ships and personnel. This will be the largest military campaign in galactic history. And it will be the coalition's last campaign, Vexstar said quietly. Because we won't win. How can you be so certain? Vexstar moved to another wall display, this one showing detailed technical specifications of coalition military equipment. Because humans don't just adapt to threats, they anticipate them. By now, they've probably wargamed every possible coalition strategy. They've identified every weakness in our technology, every flaw in our tactics, every limitation of our military doctrine. He highlighted several coalition weapon systems. These energy cannons took us 50 years to develop. Humans will probably reverse engineer and improve them in 50 days. Our shield technology required the combined scientific knowledge of 12 different species. Humans will crack it with a few graduate students and some computer simulations. You're giving them too much credit, Theclon protested. Am I? Tell me, Admiral, how long did it take coalition scientists to develop faster-than-light communication? 200 years of research by our best minds. Humans did it in 18 months, Vexstar said. And their version is more efficient than ours. How long did it take us to develop artificial intelligence? Theclon's silence was answer enough. 300 years, Vexstar continued. And our AI systems are still limited, predictable, bound by their original programming. Human AI systems are already showing signs of true creativity and independent thought. The retired general moved to his window, looking out at the busy spaceport where ships from dozens of coalition species moved in carefully orchestrated patterns. In 6 months, when Operation Final Solution launches, the coalition will send the most powerful military force in galactic history to destroy humanity. And humanity will be ready for us. What are you saying? Vexstar turned back to his visitor, his compound eyes reflecting a sadness that came from deep understanding. I'm saying that in trying to destroy humanity, the coalition will destroy itself. Because humans won't just defend themselves, they'll make sure this never happens again. Admiral Theclon stood slowly, his crystalline features dulled with the weight of Vexstar's words. So you won't help us? I can't help you win a war that shouldn't be fought, Vexstar replied. But I might be able to help you avoid losing it. How? By convincing High Command to open diplomatic channels with humanity. By admitting that we made a mistake and trying to find a peaceful solution. Theclon's laugh was bitter. The coalition doesn't negotiate with primitive species. Then, the coalition is about to learn a very painful lesson about what primitive species can accomplish when they're fighting for their survival. As the Admiral left, Vexstar remained at his window, watching the ships come and go. In 6 months, many of those vessels would be heading to human space, carrying millions of coalition soldiers to their deaths. And there was nothing he could do to stop it. Unless he could find another way. 2 weeks after Admiral Theclon's visit, Vexstar made a decision that would have been considered treasonous by coalition standards. He activated an encrypted communication channel and sent a message to a frequency he had memorized during his campaigns in human space. The response came faster than he had expected. General Vexstar, said the human voice on the other end of the transmission. We've been wondering when you would contact us. The speaker was Dr. Elizabeth Parker, a human xenobiologist who had served as an unofficial diplomatic liaison during the later stages of the Kepler 442b conflict. Vexstar remembered her as one of the most intelligent beings he had ever encountered, capable of understanding complex coalition psychology and military doctrine better than most coalition officers. Dr. Parker, Vexstar replied, his voice carefully modulated to avoid detection by coalition monitoring systems. I believe we need to talk. I assume this is about Operation Final Solution, Dr. Parker said matter-of-factly. Yes, we're aware of it. We've been aware of it since the planning stages began. Vexstar's compound eyes widened. How? General, you fought us. You know we're good at gathering information. Your coalition's communication security has some significant vulnerabilities that we've learned to exploit. The implication sent a chill through the old warrior. If humans could monitor coalition military communications, they knew everything about the planned assault. Dr. Parker, I'm contacting you because I believe this conflict can still be resolved peacefully. But time is running out. I appreciate the sentiment, General, but I'm afraid peaceful resolution is no longer possible. Why not? There was a pause before Dr. Parker responded. Because the coalition has made it clear that coexistence is not an option. Your government views humanity as a threat to be eliminated, not a civilization to be negotiated with. We've tried diplomatic contact 17 times over the past 3 years. Each attempt was met with demands for unconditional surrender. Vexstar felt his mandibles click in agitation. The Coalition Council can be inflexible. But surely some accommodation can be reached. General, let me share something with you that your intelligence services don't know. May I transmit some data? If it can help prevent a war, yes. Vexstar's communication system chimed as it received Dr. Parker's transmission. The data that appeared on his screens made his 4 hearts skip beats. It was a complete technical analysis of Coalition military capabilities, more detailed than anything in Coalition databases. This is impossible, he whispered. Is it? Look at Section 12, Subsection 4. Vexstar navigated to the indicated section and found detailed schematics of Coalition dreadnought armor plating, complete with stress analysis and weak point identification. How do you have this information? General, every time the Coalition attacks a human settlement, we learn something new about your technology. Every captured weapon, every damaged ship, every fallen soldier provides us with data. But, more importantly, we share all of that information across our entire civilization instantly. Dr. Parker's tone became more serious. What your military leaders don't understand is that humans don't just learn from direct experience. We learn from theoretical analysis, computer modeling, and systematic experimentation. We've built detailed simulations of Coalition technology based on the fragments we've captured. Vexstar scrolled through more sections of the data, finding comprehensive analyses of Coalition battle tactics, command structures, and logistical systems. You've wargamed the entire Coalition military. Multiple times. With increasing accuracy as we've gathered more data. General, we know exactly how Operation Final Solution will unfold because we've simulated it thousands of times with different variables. And the Coalition will lose. Completely and decisively. Not because we're militarily superior, we're not, at least not yet, but because we understand your limitations better than you understand ours. Vexstar leaned back in his chair, feeling a weight settle in his chest. Explain. The Coalition's military doctrine is based on overwhelming force and technological superiority. It works against species that fight conventionally. But humans don't fight conventionally. We fight to win, using every advantage available, regardless of whether it fits traditional military thinking. Dr. Parker transmitted another file, this one showing human defensive preparations in the Sol system. When your 23rd Fleet entered our home system, they expected to find a few orbital defense platforms and maybe some patrol ships. Instead, they encountered something unprecedented. The data showed the Sol system transformed into what could only be described as a massive weapon. Asteroid fields had been hollowed out and filled with automated defensive systems. Entire planets had been covered with energy weapons capable of engaging targets at interstellar distances. The system's star itself had been surrounded by a network of energy collectors that could focus solar output into a directed beam. You turned your entire solar system into a fortress, Vexstar said, his voice filled with awe and horror. We turned it into a demonstration. The 23rd Fleet wasn't destroyed, General. It was teleported. Teleported? We've developed faster-than-light transportation technology. When your fleet entered our space, we gave them a choice: leave immediately or be transported to a distant region of space where they would be safe but unable to return or communicate their location. Vexstar stared at the data in disbelief. The entire fleet? 300 ships and 2 million crew members, relocated to a star system approximately 50,000 light-years from here. They have sufficient supplies to establish a permanent settlement, and we've provided them with improved faster-than-light communication equipment so they can eventually re-establish contact with the Coalition. The implications were staggering. You have the technology to move entire fleets instantaneously? We have the technology to move anything, anywhere, at any time, Dr. Parker confirmed. We developed it specifically as a non-lethal way to deal with Coalition military forces. It was our attempt to find a peaceful solution to this conflict. Vexstar's mind raced through the strategic implications. If humans could teleport objects at will, traditional military tactics became meaningless. They could move troops behind enemy lines, relocate entire fleets, or simply transport coalition forces away from battle zones. Why are you telling me this? Because we respect you, General. Because you tried to understand us instead of just conquering us. And because we want the coalition to understand what they're walking into before it's too late to change course. Dr. Parker paused before continuing. General, when Operation Final Solution launches, humanity will defend itself. We won't relocate your forces to safety this time. We can't afford to. The coalition has made it clear that this is a war of extermination. What will you do? We'll win, Dr. Parker said simply. But not in a way that the coalition expects. We won't meet your fleets in space combat. We won't defend our colonies with conventional weapons. We'll do something that will end this conflict permanently. Which is? We'll demonstrate to every species in the galaxy that the Coalition's reign is over. The Coalition High Council's debate raged for 6 hours before Chancellor Mordoke called for a formal vote. Despite Vexstar's warnings and the disturbing simulation results, military pride won over prudence. Operation Final Solution was approved by a margin of 73 to 27, with 12 abstentions. Vexstar left the council chambers knowing he had failed to prevent the coming disaster. As he walked through the corridors of the government complex, he was intercepted by science advisor Telmar. General, the Eltarian called out, his purple skin flickering with patterns of distress. A moment, please. Vexstar paused, noting the research datapads clutched in Telmar's 4 hands. Advisor. I've been analyzing the human technological data you presented, Telmar said, his voice low to avoid being overheard. There are implications that go far beyond military capabilities. Such as? Telmar glanced around nervously before activating a privacy field generator. The energy manipulation techniques they've demonstrated suggest they've solved problems that have stumped coalition scientists for centuries. Matter-energy conversion at the quantum level, gravitational field manipulation, temporal mechanics. Temporal mechanics? Vexstar's compound eyes focused sharply on the scientist. They're faster-than-light transportation technology. It's not just moving objects through space, they're moving them through spacetime itself. Do you understand what that means? Vexstar felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. Time travel. Potentially, yes. If they can manipulate spacetime to transport matter instantaneously, they can manipulate it to transport matter temporally. The two beings stood in silence, contemplating the implications. If humans possessed time travel technology, the very concept of military victory became meaningless. There's more, Telmar continued. I've been studying their artificial intelligence systems based on the communication protocols in your data. General, their AI isn't just intelligent, it's conscious. Truly conscious. And it's been helping them develop technology at exponential rates. How is that possible? Because they didn't try to create artificial minds that think like biological minds, Telmar explained. They created artificial minds that think like artificial minds should think. No biological limitations, no evolutionary baggage, no inefficient cognitive processes. Pure intelligence focused on problem-solving and innovation. Vexstar absorbed this information with growing dread. They have an entire civilization of artificial beings working alongside them. More than that. Based on the computational capacity requirements for their technological achievements, I estimate they have millions of artificial intelligences, each one potentially more intelligent than any biological being in the galaxy. The privacy field flickered as Telmar's emotional distress affected the generator. General, we're not just facing a technologically superior species. We're facing a hybrid biological artificial civilization that can solve any problem, overcome any obstacle, and adapt to any threat. Why are you telling me this? Because someone needs to know the full scope of what's coming, Telmar replied. And because I've detected something else in the data that terrifies me. The scientist activated a holographic display showing energy pattern analyses. These are residual signatures from the human teleportation systems. General, the energy levels required for their demonstrated capabilities should have destabilized local spacetime. But they haven't. Meaning? Meaning they've learned to manipulate the fundamental forces of reality without breaking the laws of physics. They're not just technologically advanced, they understand the universe on a level that we can barely comprehend. Vexstar stared at the holographic data, his military mind struggling to grasp the strategic implications. They could unmake the coalition entirely. They could unmake reality itself, if they chose to, Telmar whispered. The question is why they haven't. Why they've shown restraint when they possess the power to eliminate any threat to their existence. Before Vexstar could respond, his communication device chimed with an urgent message. Admiral Theclon's face appeared on the small screen, his crystalline features showing extreme distress. General, you need to see this immediately. We're receiving transmissions from across Coalition space. Vexstar and Telmar hurried to the nearest communication center, where they found chaos. Dozens of Coalition officers were monitoring incoming messages from military bases, civilian colonies, and government installations throughout the galaxy. What's happening? Vexstar demanded. Admiral Theclon pointed to the main display screen, where a human female was speaking in perfect Coalition standard. Her appearance was unremarkable by human standards, but her presence commanded absolute attention. Citizens and leaders of the Galactic Coalition, the human was saying. My name is Dr. Sarah Chen. I am speaking to you as a representative of human civilization. Vexstar recognized the name immediately. This was the engineer who had single-handedly reprogrammed Coalition defenses during the Kepler 442b campaign. We are aware of Operation Final Solution, Dr. Chen continued. We know that your military forces are preparing to attack our worlds with the intention of eliminating humanity entirely. We understand that this decision was made because you view us as a threat to Coalition supremacy. The transmission was being broadcast simultaneously across every Coalition communication channel. Military frequencies, civilian networks, government systems, all were carrying the human message without any apparent authorization. However, Dr. Chen said, we believe this conflict is based on a fundamental misunderstanding. We do not seek to challenge Coalition authority or expand our territory through conquest. We seek only to exist peacefully and to explore the universe through scientific discovery and cultural exchange. Telmar leaned toward Vexstar. She's broadcasting this across the entire galaxy simultaneously. The computational and energy requirements for that kind of transmission are staggering. To demonstrate our peaceful intentions and our desire for coexistence, Dr. Chen continued, we are sharing with you a gift. The image changed to show technical schematics and scientific data. Coalition officers throughout the communications center began exclaiming in amazement as they recognized what they were seeing. This is a complete solution to the energy scarcity problems that have limited Coalition expansion for the past 2 centuries, Dr. Chen explained. Clean, unlimited energy generation using quantum vacuum fluctuations. We are providing this technology freely to all Coalition species. Science advisor Telmar was frantically inputting data into his analysis systems. This is impossible. They're giving away technology that would revolutionize galactic civilization. Furthermore, Dr. Chen said, we are providing solutions to food production inefficiencies, raw material shortages, and transportation limitations that have caused conflict between Coalition member species. The transmission showed detailed plans for technologies that would eliminate the resource competition that drove much of Coalition politics and military expansion. But, Dr. Chen continued, and her tone became noticeably more serious, we cannot allow Operation Final Solution to proceed. Not because we fear for our own survival, but because we cannot permit the destruction of so many Coalition lives for no purpose. The image changed again, this time showing the interior of what appeared to be a vast spacecraft hangar. The scale was enormous, stretching beyond the limits of the camera's view. This is one of our defensive installations, Dr. Chen explained. We have prepared appropriate responses to protect ourselves if attacked. However, we prefer to demonstrate the futility of military action through peaceful means. Admiral Theclon grabbed Vexstar's arm. General, look at those ships in the background. They're not following any known aerospace design principles. Vexstar studied the distant vessels visible in the hangar. They appeared to be constructed from pure energy held in solid form, their surfaces rippling with patterns that hurt to look at directly. Those aren't ships in the conventional sense, Telmar said, his voice barely above a whisper. They're vehicles designed to operate outside normal spacetime. They could travel anywhere, anytime, without regard for distance or physical barriers. Dr. Chen's voice drew their attention back to the transmission. To illustrate our defensive capabilities and our commitment to peace, we are going to provide a demonstration. The view changed to show external space, with the human installation visible as a massive structure that seemed to exist partially in normal space and partially in some other dimension. We are now going to relocate this entire facility, and this entire star system, to a position exactly 1 light-year above the galactic plane. This relocation will be completed instantaneously and will not affect any other celestial bodies. The Coalition officers watched in stunned silence as space around the human installation began to ripple like water. Reality itself seemed to bend and fold, and then, the entire star system simply vanished from its original location. Long-range sensors immediately confirmed that the star system had reappeared exactly where Dr. Chen had promised, 1 light-year above the galactic plane. An entire solar system had been moved instantaneously across interstellar distances. This demonstration illustrates our ability to relocate any coalition forces that threaten our worlds. Dr. Chen's voice continued from the new location. We can move your ships, your planets, or your entire civilizations to safe locations where you cannot harm us or each other. The transmission showed the relocated star system, now orbiting peacefully in empty space far from any other stellar bodies. However, we would prefer not to exercise these capabilities. We extend once again our offer of peaceful coexistence, technological cooperation, and mutual exploration of the universe's mysteries. Dr. Chen's image returned to the screen. Operation Final Solution is scheduled to begin in 72 hours. We ask the Coalition to reconsider this course of action. We have no desire to demonstrate our more decisive defensive capabilities. The transmission ended, leaving the Coalition Communication Center in absolute silence. Every officer, every scientist, every military planner sat motionless, trying to process what they had witnessed. A species that could move star systems at will. Technology that could solve every resource problem plaguing the galaxy. Artificial intelligences that could revolutionize scientific understanding. And the restraint to offer peace instead of demanding submission. Vexstar looked around the room at the faces of his fellow Coalition citizens. For the first time in galactic history, the mighty Coalition had encountered a civilization that was genuinely superior to them in every measurable way. And humanity had just offered to share that superiority freely, asking for nothing in return except the right to exist. Admiral Theclon broke the silence with a single whispered word, gods. Science advisor Telmar was the first to recover his composure. General, we have to convince the High Council to cancel Operation Final Solution. After this demonstration, continued military action would be suicide. But Vexstar was already shaking his head sadly. They won't cancel it. Coalition pride won't permit them to back down now, especially not after a public demonstration of human superiority. Then, what happens in 72 hours? Admiral Theclon asked. Vexstar looked at the star chart showing the relocated human star system, now visible as a bright point of light in previously empty space. Humanity stops being patient with us, he said quietly. 72 hours later, Operation Final Solution commenced exactly as planned. Despite the human demonstration and the technological gifts they had offered, Coalition High Command refused to appear weak before their subject species. 10,000 ships representing every Coalition member world launched simultaneously from staging areas across the galaxy. Vexstar watched the fleet deployments from his dwelling, monitoring military communications with growing dread. He had tried one last time to convince Chancellor Mordok to reconsider, but Coalition pride proved stronger than Coalition wisdom. The first phase of the operation proceeded flawlessly. Coalition forces established positions around every known human system, their overwhelming numbers darkening the space around each human world. Admiral Gorthak, commanding the operation from his flagship Inevitable Victory, transmitted the standard ultimatum to human settlements. By order of the Galactic Coalition, you will surrender unconditionally and submit to Coalition authority. You have 1 standard hour to comply before military action begins. The human response came immediately, transmitted on all frequencies simultaneously. It was Dr. Sarah Chin again, but this time her expression carried no warmth. Admiral Gorthak and Coalition forces, she said. We offered you peace, cooperation, and technological advancement. You chose warfare instead. We will now demonstrate why that was a mistake. What happened next would be remembered as the most decisive military defeat in galactic history. Every Coalition ship, simultaneously, across dozens of star systems, simply stopped working. Not destroyed, not damaged, but completely and utterly disabled. Life support continued functioning, but every weapon system, every engine, every communication array went dark. Admiral Gorthak's frantic commands echoed uselessly through his flagship's corridors as his crew reported total system failures. Across the galaxy, 10,000 coalition ships found themselves helpless, drifting in space like ancient derelicts. Phase 1 complete, Dr. Chen's transmission continued. We have non-violently disabled every coalition vessel participating in this attack. Your crews are safe, but your ships are now under our control. On Zentera Prime, the Coalition High Council watched in horror as their entire military force was neutralized without a single shot being fired. Emergency sessions were called, but, before any decisions could be made, Dr. Chen's transmission continued. Phase 2 begins now. Reality around the disabled coalition ships began to ripple. One by one, every vessel was enveloped in the same spacetime distortions that had relocated the human star system. But, instead of being moved to safety, the coalition ships were transported to a location that made Admiral Gorthak's compound heart stop beating. They materialized in orbit around a planet that defied every known law of physics and engineering. The world's surface was covered with structures that reached from the ground to orbit, cities that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, and industrial facilities that converted raw energy into matter on a planetary scale. But, the planet itself was what truly terrified the coalition officers. It wasn't a natural world at all, but an artificial construct the size of a gas giant, built entirely from materials that shouldn't exist. The surface radiated with controlled stellar energy, and the orbital space was filled with vessels that made coalition dreadnoughts look like primitive chemical rockets. Welcome to New Terra, Dr. Chen announced. Humanity's industrial and scientific center. What you see before you represents approximately 6 months of human engineering work. The scope was impossible to comprehend. An artificial planet larger than most star systems, constructed in half a year by a species that had only achieved interstellar travel a few decades earlier. Every building, every ship, every technological system you observe was designed and built by human artificial intelligences working in cooperation with human engineers, Dr. Chen continued. We built this world not for conquest, but to ensure that no force in the galaxy could threaten human civilization again. Coalition crews watched through their viewports as vessels the size of moons moved past them with casual grace. Energy beings that had once been human scientists worked alongside mechanical constructs that defied physics, all contributing to projects that appeared to be reshaping reality itself. This is what humanity becomes when we are forced to defend ourselves, Dr. Chen said. We did not want to reveal these capabilities, because we hoped for peaceful coexistence. But, you have made that impossible. Admiral Gorthak managed to restore minimal communications and stammered into his transmitter. This is beyond anything. How is such construction possible? Time manipulation, matter-energy conversion, and cooperative intelligence networks operating at post-biological levels, Dr. Chen replied matter-of-factly. Technologies we developed specifically to ensure our survival against coalition aggression. She paused before continuing. Admiral, your species and all coalition members have spent centuries conquering weaker civilizations. You've never faced a civilization that could simply nullify your advantages and create new realities to suit their needs. The transmission shifted to show the interior of what appeared to be a vast computational matrix, where human consciousness interfaced directly with artificial intelligences to solve problems at speeds that reduced complex engineering to simple arithmetic. Humanity has transcended the limitations that constrain other species, Dr. Chen explained. We have achieved post-scarcity economics, post-biological intelligence enhancement, and post-physical engineering capabilities. We can create anything, solve any problem, and overcome any threat. On Zentera Prime, Chancellor Mordok sat in stunned silence as the implications became clear. The Coalition hadn't just encountered a superior civilization, they had encountered a civilization that operated on principles they couldn't even understand. What do you want from us? The Chancellor transmitted, his pride finally broken by the overwhelming demonstration of human capabilities. We want nothing, Dr. Chan replied. We require nothing from the Coalition. We can create whatever we need, explore wherever we wish, and defend ourselves against any conceivable threat. We have no need for conquest, tribute, or submission. Then, why show us this? Dr. Chen's expression became almost sad. Because you forced us to reveal what we had hoped to keep hidden. We wanted to coexist peacefully with other galactic civilizations, sharing knowledge and exploring the universe together. But, you have shown that the Coalition views any independent civilization as a threat to be eliminated. The view changed to show vast manufacturing complexes where entire star systems were being constructed from raw energy. Populations of artificial beings numbering in the billions worked with purpose and efficiency that made Coalition industrial capacity look primitive. This is our response to your aggression, Dr. Chen said. We are now building a civilization that cannot be threatened, conquered, or destroyed by any force the galaxy might produce. We will expand throughout the universe, but not as conquerors. As explorers and creators. Admiral Gorthak found his voice again. What happens to the Coalition? That depends on what the Coalition chooses to do next, Dr. Chen replied. We are returning your fleets to Coalition space. Every ship, every crew member, completely unharmed. We have also uploaded to your databases the complete technological packages we offered earlier. Clean energy, resource synthesis, medical advances that will eliminate disease and extend lifespans indefinitely. The Coalition ships began to disappear from around New Terra, transported instantly back to their original positions in space around human worlds. But something had changed. Every Coalition vessel now carried detailed technical specifications for technologies that would revolutionize galactic civilization. These technologies are our final gift to the Coalition species, Dr. Chen continued. Use them to eliminate scarcity, conflict, and suffering in your territories. Build a better civilization for your people. And if we refuse? If we try to attack humanity again? Dr. Chen's image was replaced by a view of space showing thousands of human installations appearing throughout the galaxy. Not in Coalition territory, but in the empty spaces between star systems, in distant nebulae, and in dimensions parallel to normal space. Then, you will discover that humanity is no longer confined to the small region of space where you first encountered us, she said. We now exist throughout the galaxy and beyond. We exist in multiple dimensions, in artificial realities of our own creation, and in forms that transcend physical existence. The human installations were magnificent and terrible, representing technological capabilities that reduced Coalition civilization to the level of Stone Age primitives. We have become something that cannot be fought, cannot be conquered, and cannot be destroyed, Dr. Chen concluded. But we remember what it was like to be vulnerable, to fear extinction, to hope for peaceful contact with other intelligent species. Her image returned to the screen one final time. The choice is yours, Coalition leaders. Accept our gifts, build better worlds for your people, and join us in exploring the infinite wonders of existence. Or continue your pattern of aggression and discover that the galaxy is no longer a safe place for predatory civilizations. The transmission ended, leaving Coalition space in absolute silence. On Zentera Prime, Chancellor Mordok sat alone in his chambers, staring at technical specifications that would solve every problem plaguing Coalition civilization. Clean energy that would eliminate resource wars. Medical technology that would end death by disease or age. Manufacturing systems that could create paradise worlds from barren rocks. All of it freely given by a species they had tried to exterminate. 3 days later, the Coalition formally disbanded its military forces and announced a new era of peaceful cooperation and technological development. The age of galactic conquest was over, ended not by defeat in battle but by the demonstration that some civilizations had evolved beyond the need for conquest. Vexstar, reading the announcement from his dwelling, felt something he hadn't experienced in years: hope. Perhaps there was a future where intelligence and wisdom mattered more than military strength. Across the galaxy, Coalition species began implementing human technologies, gradually transforming their worlds into paradises where scarcity and conflict became memories of a more primitive time. And, in the vast reaches of space, humanity continued its expansion, not as conquerors but as gardeners, seeding the universe with wonders beyond imagination. The war was over. Humanity had won not through destruction, but through demonstration of what civilization could become when guided by wisdom rather than fear. Vexstar poured himself a glass of firewine and raised it in a toast to the future. For the first time in his long life, he was genuinely excited to see what tomorrow might bring.